Hello and welcome back to Ask an Adventurer. Question 1. Do you find it difficult to stop comparing yourself to other adventurers out there? Yes. Yeah, I find that I have been quite competitive and envious and rivalrous of other adventurers, and some people I've looked at and thought, why are you rich, famous and successful? What I've done is much cooler than you. So I've felt those sort of issues. One way I've got around that, apart from thinking this is pathetic, grow up, is to just stop following the sort of people I compare myself to, stop following them on social media and try and measure my successes by my own intrinsic values, the things that feel important to me inside, not the external markers of chasing somebody else, because that is a race you're never going to win. It takes all the running you can do to stay in the same place, said the Queen in Alice in Wonderland, I think. Next question. Do you like peanut butter? If so, crunchy or smooth? Excellent question. I do like peanut butter. I definitely prefer crunchy. However, these days, because I'm really old and posh, I've moved to really preferring almond butter. Smooth or crunchy, I don't mind with almond butter. I much prefer it. It's delicious. Unfortunately, it's really expensive. I love almond butter. How much money do you actually make per year? Okay, well, it's an Ask an Adventurer. Ask me anything. So when I started trying, I don't like talking about money, by the way, but I'm going to try. British awkwardness. When I started trying to make this stuff my job, I quit being a teacher in order to do adventure. And for me, for my sort of self-worth and validation of, yes, I've got a proper job and this is a sensible use of my life, I made a rule with myself to try and earn more each year than I would if I was a teacher. And I managed to catch up a teacher's salary and keep up with the teacher's salary for a while. Then I overtook a teacher's salary. And then over bunch of years, as I started doing this corporate motivational speaking and making films for brands, I started to earn way more money than I'd ever imagined. My record, I got over 200 grand one year, which is just nuts for just prattling about. Wonderful. But I've stopped flying for adventures and speaking and filming. That cuts out a lot of cash. I've stopped making film stuff in order to spend more time at home and family. I've stopped pretty much going off on big adventures in order to be a stay-at-home dad. So now I earn much less than I used to, but still plenty, enough to be doing fine. Yeah, absolutely fine and thankful. I think probably the useful answer is by working pretty hard at writing books and a few magazine articles and doing some normal sort of talks in schools and maybe the odd business thing here and there, that it would be entirely reasonable to match a teacher's salary and progression through life. I think that's probably a decent comparison, I'd say. Tips for improving my writing skills. The single biggest tip I would have for improving your writing skills is to read lots of books. Read. If you don't love reading, you're probably not really going to love writing. So yeah, that would be my biggest tip. How do I do a gap year now that I'm 40 and I've got kids and bills to pay monthly? Two options. Either you take your kids out of school, you rent out or sell your house and all your stuff, and you live off the proceeds of that and live as cheap as is necessary and go backpacking with your family for a year. It'll be a massive logistical hassle. You'll come home totally skint, and I'm pretty sure on your deathbed you'll think it's the best thing you ever did in your life. If you're not up for something quite as radical as a whole gap year with your family, maybe you could do 365 days of micro adventures. Try and squeeze small adventures in around the framework of busy life. And I know that's not as exciting and thrilling and escapist as the full-on launch, but maybe making more of your weekends and evenings might start to help with the itch and restlessness sometime. And then, of course, there's compromises in between that. Can you talk to your boss and get a week off work, a month, 2 months, 3 months, a sabbatical? Who knows? I would suggest they're going to talk to your boss. Don't just write it off as, nah, that will never happen. Talk to them. They might share in your dreams and enthusiasm. I often hear of people whose bosses get sharing that enthusiasm and might help you make it happen. Right. I'd love to know more about how you risk assess an adventure. I work for the BBC. They do formal risk assessments. Did I have a formal process? Do you take less risks as you get older? Looking back to your Colombia segment of your world trip, you took lots of advice and then ignored it anyway. I know you'll say that it was the correct answer, but actually it seems to me the advice was not to go. You will say now that it was worth ignoring the advice. If you're advising that young person, what would you do? What a great bunch of questions. So, big expeditions, let's say polar trips, or when I went to expedition to Greenland, stuff like that, where you need quite complicated insurance policies. You have to put together a fairly sensible risk assessment to get some insurance, and also to make sure that your own safety plans and preparation and equipment and skills are up to scratch. Other things like, in fact, to be honest, most of the adventures that I prefer, they're just sort of go and wing it stuff, cycle across a continent. I don't do anything formal there. It's just a sort of gut feeling thing, judging situation to situation. And Colombia is interesting because when I was about to go through Colombia, it's a really dangerous part of the Civil War. And I asked loads of people. I asked the Foreign Office, I asked Special Forces soldiers who were working out there, and everyone said to me, no, 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 no. And in the end, I did it anyway. The recklessness of youth rolling the dice. And you're right, I would say it was the right decision because I went to Colombia, had a great time, nothing bad happened, hooray! But was that the right decision? With hindsight, you'd say yes, because I survived and had a great time. But if I died, it would have been the wrong decision. So how do you balance up those two things? And I think in the end, you have to just settle on some sort of level of personal pragmatic recklessness whereby you minimize the risks as much as you're able to, and you roll the dice, and then it's just down to your gut of how big a number on the dice you're willing to accept before it's worth going to do. And yes, the older you get, the more commitments and ties you have, the lower one's risk threshold becomes. And rightly so, I would argue. When I see adventurers go off and die and leave behind a young family, I'm sorry to say that I just increasingly think that's so stupid. It's just not worth it for hurting other people. So that's my opinion, which I suppose shows my opinion to my tolerance of risk these days is perhaps quite different to my younger, more reckless and selfish and less committed, less tied down self. When packing for a trip, what are your essential luxury items? I think luxury items, well, it's always good to take a bit nicer food than you think. We rode across the Atlantic Ocean with disgusting, average, adequate food, and not having any treats to look forward to. It's just miserable. I think it's really worth being warm at night. I read all these mountaineering books where people shiver their way through the night rather than carry a sleeping bag. I'm definitely of the category that I'd rather carry a few 100 grams of extra clothing and have a warm night's sleep. So I'm very much in team warm night's sleep, definitely. I've got a little blow up pillow which I really like as well. How do you find expeditions with other people? How do you get contacts with other people? Are there online platforms, or is it mostly a friend has told another one, so let's go do it together? So this is a bit of a chicken and egg type scenario here, in that the more you do adventures, the more you start to find other people who you can then go do those adventures with, and the more other people know you who might get in touch with you and invite you to join them. So it really is a chicken and egg type thing. In terms of groups, the RGS Explore Weekend in November is a great way of meeting like-minded adventurous souls. For women, there's a fantastic online community called Love Her Wild, another one called Adventure Queens. A more general one is called Explorers Connect. It's got lots of people doing these sort of things. And then there are festivals as well, like there's the Cycle Touring Festival, which happens in about May each year, which is a place to find people like that. But I've never done an adventure with a full. No, I've had. Doing adventure with a full-on stranger is a risk. I'd say you have to be believing that you are a very flexible and relaxed personality. I'd say so. Yeah, you do want to sort of find some friends and then gradually get yourself into some sort of community. But it is hard to begin for that. Funny then, the next question, do you do any adventure camps to train future adventurers like me? No, I don't. All I suggest is that you go do what you can with what you've got and you begin it now. Go on an adventure this weekend. That's the best training you can have. What's your biggest source of income? Speaking, what percent? Someone wants to do a coffee table book in my pictures. Have I been to NEP? So NEP is one of Britain's great rewilding projects. It was a farm, a big farm that was failing, spanking cash, just trying to stay alive, really unsustainable. And they made the bold decision, just let it go, to rewild and to return to nature. And everyone thought they were mad, and everyone complained that it was all going to start to look scruffy. And now, after a bunch of years, now they're starting to make great money from tourism and from I think they've got a restaurant there and stuff like that. It's a fantastic rewilded landscape, and I try and go there every spring to listen to the dawn chorus. It's just amazing to be there at 4 a.m. and listen to the variety of loud birdsong. And it's such a hopeful place because it shows you how quickly nature returns if we just stop wrecking it. Right. Final question for today. How do you overcome, when sleeping outdoors, how do you overcome the fear of an icy cold and a bad back? Well, this probably links to what I should have answered earlier about nice equipment. A good sleeping mat, a good roll mat is really helpful camping. If you're camping somewhere where it's rocky or thorny, get the foam ones that won't puncture. If you're going somewhere softer, then you get sort of self-inflating Thermarests, and you can get really big, chunky, thick ones. So this comes down to a balance of how much gear you're willing to carry, essentially. But you can definitely get sleeping mats which will offset the icy cold and comfy enough so that you won't get a bad back. Absolutely, that need not be a unsolvable issue for your adventuring. Thanks so much for your questions. Please keep them coming in, and we will see you soon.